What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Goddess C, and I'm here with another podcast episode. Welcome to Holistic and Spiritual as Fuck. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And I am pretty much anywhere that podcasts are available. So be sure to follow and subscribe if you're new to this podcast. On this podcast, we talk about all sorts of things such as energy healing, healing generational trauma, ancestral wisdom, metaphysics. We go deep in the mind, body, spirit integration, okay? Because if any one of those things are out of balance, then we ourselves are out of balance. So we don't want that, especially in the times that we're living in. We want to keep our spirit body fortified so that we're living inwardly, outwardly, okay? And if you are coming back, welcome back, fam. I appreciate you so much for tuning in and listening and becoming a regular. Definitely appreciate you. Be sure to share this podcast out with your friends and your family that you think will resonate with this type of material that I'm doing here. And I'm also having podcast guests on the show as well to share their expertise, their wisdom, their stories, their experience. And these podcast episodes drop on the first and the third Friday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, I peekaboo in throughout the weeks as well to drop my personal experience, downloads, things that are going on with me. Okay, so you don't want to miss that. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe and follow me in the respective places. Something else that I've started to do is I've been having master classes. I just recently had the Back to Balance, the chakra balancing master class. It was very powerful. So if you missed that, that class is now on sale. I'll have all this information down in the description so that you can check out my link and where to find me, as well as where to find my guests as well. And of course, I'm on social media. I'm all over social media on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Substack, and Medium as well. It seems like the list just keeps growing longer and longer. So you can find me over there at Holistic and Spiritual AF, and that's and spelled out. Let's see, what else do I have going on? The next masterclass is going to be how to connect with your ancestors. That one is long overdue, and that was by popular demand. So that class is going to be January the 22nd. That's a Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, information will be down in the description. You definitely want to check that out. This is going to be the diaspora edition, so that everybody in there can really kind of connect with their roots and start to have some applicable ways that they can connecting with their ancestors safely. And it's just going to be phenomenal. It's going to be mind blowing. I already know. So I'll tell you what else is going to be mind blowing. Today's guest, okay, it truly was an honor to be able to sit down and talk with her and build with her because she's doing some amazing things. Her name is Revee Lucidian, which is absolutely amazing, but she's better known as Dr. Ray, okay? Sis is highly qualified, and y'all got to put some respect on that doctor when you say Dr. Ray, okay? She is an award-winning board-certified naturopathic and functional medicine physician with over 20 years in healthcare. She's the founder of A Dose of Vitamin Ray, a root cause telemedicine clinic and lifestyle brand. Dr. Ray provides care across California and New Hampshire while offering health coaching nationwide. She has a master's in integrative medicine research and specialty training in women's health, biotoxin illness, regenerative medicine, and metaphysical healing. Dr. Ray is a powerhouse of holistic expertise. She's been featured in Forbes Health, MindBodyGreen, and more, and has served as a brand ambassador and expert panelist for major wellness brands. Based in New Hampshire, she's passionate about nature, cooking, and family. Okay, so sis is qualified. Like I said, the conversation is so amazing. So you don't want to miss this full episode, okay? Because today we're going to be exploring how she combines her roots of ancestral wisdom and the power of herbs into her approach to natural healing. And in this episode, she shares how connecting with the traditions of her ancestors has actually shaped her practice, offering a pathway back to the honored natural ways of healing, okay? So, like I said, truly an honor to sit down and speak with her. And I just know that you guys are going to really enjoy this podcast episode. So make sure that you listen to it to its entirety. And without further talking for me, let's get into it. So welcome, Revee. I am so glad that you decided to join me on this podcast episode today. I'm really excited to get into this conversation with you because you have so many amazing gifts and things that you're bringing to the table in the
Thank you.
naturopathic world and the spiritual realm. And I'm so excited to have you. So you dibble dabble in a lot of things. I mean, you're a naturopathic. You're also into metaphysics. You're into medical tarot and mediumship, and I'm really excited to hear about that, as well as indigenous healing practices, including the ATR. So, wow, you're pretty well rounded, and you look really young. So, just tell me a little bit about yourself, like how you got started with this, and like how you got on the path, and what led to what next.
Yes, thanks, God Z. I appreciate being invited to join you on this wonderful platform that you're curating. And I appreciate the compliment of the youthfulness. I'm trying to make sure they don't make me crack out
Right,
here in
you know
these
how we
streets.
do.
Which is probably why I'm in so much spirituality to try to
That's true.
cultivate that Zen. So that's part of it too, is
Hmm.
this trying to have that grounding and that support. But my journey began very, very young. I don't know how many people can attest to this, but as a child, even as a toddler, I always knew I wanted to be in the healing modalities in some way, shape, or form. Back then it just got programmed into me like, oh, you want to be a doctor. So since I was 3 years old, I knew I wanted to do something to help people in their healing process. And so I strived to be a doctor. And I stayed very steadfast with that all the way until I got through college. And that's really when I hit that pressure point of just trying to decide which medicine I'm going to go into. I think some people don't realize we have different industries and fields of medicine. So it isn't just the MDs, the medical doctors. There's
Right.
osteopathic medicine, which are DOs. There's podiatry. There's many others. And then I ended up learning about naturopathic medicine, where you could become a naturopathic physician or an ND, naturopathic doctor. And when I discovered that, it just aligned because I grew up in Virginia, in the mountains of the Appalachia, and my folks, we did a lot of home remedies, a lot of backyard medicine, as we call it, folk
Nice.
medicine. And so that was already integrated into me. And I knew from dealing with sick loved ones at a very early age, being in the hospital with them, being at doctor's appointments with them, I did not resonate with the way they were being cared for. They were being dehumanized.
Mhm.
They were not being asked what they really want, what they feel. Their pain was being ignored. That impacted me. And that's part of which strayed me from where I knew,
Mhm.
definitely by the time I graduated college, I was like, I don't know if I can go into the conventional healthcare system as it is. That doesn't feel right to me to just become an MD if I know I'm going to be programmed essentially to be the same. And so through some spiritual intervention, research online, thank God for the internet, I found
Mhm.
out about naturopathic medicine and that I could go to medical school, and accredited medical school, do 4 years plus residency, which is what I did. I figured that all out, and there's a whole story behind that. And then that's what brought me into this field of medicine, mostly because I aligned with that in naturopathic medicine, we recognize the body can self-heal. I love
Yes.
that that was at the tenet of this field of medicine and practice. And then we wanted to use nature as the healing
Mhm.
tool. That's integrated into a learning. And then doctor as teacher. I thought that was critical because
I love
so
it.
often disease begets from ignorance and inaccessibility, and just you just don't know what to do. And so when you're educated and you know better, you can do better. And of course, there's the do no harm and other things too. We want to make sure that we start care at the most minimally invasive point. And that's critical for me because it's like, why are we jumping to surgery if there's some other options that we could
Right.
entertain and implore that would not involve cutting somebody open? Like, let's give it a shot. So those were the aspects that drew me in. And then nutrition, lifestyle management, energy work.
Yes.
Those are also aspects of the field of naturopathic medicine, although not everybody probably practices it in that way. But I know
Mhm.
for me, it was important to have a practice where we're really treating the whole person. We're going to talk about we're doing holistic care, holistic medicine. Then we need to be looking at all the pieces, not just the symptom and
Right.
the pill or the treatment. Let's look at all the pieces that got you here.
Oh my God, I love it. Like, and did y'all hear that? That was a doctor, okay, of naturopath. And you know what? I'm glad you broke that down and you helped to remind me of something when you talked about your childhood, how that was pretty much integrated, the herbs, and you were taught this at a young age. And so you kind of
Mhm.
knew that you wanted to go on that path. And,
Mm.
you noticed that somewhere along the line, conventional westernized medicine wasn't exactly
Mhm.
the path you wanted to go on. That
Mhm.
reminded me of me as a kid. I always wanted to be a nurse. I
Oh.
always wanted to be a nurse, and I carried on, and I was on that path. Like even in high school, I ended up becoming a CNA. And then I got
Wow.
out, and right before I had my girls, I was doing that. So I was very much headed down the nursing path. And
Mhm.
then I got married, and my
Mm.
husband had stage 4 prostate cancer. He
Oh,
was
wow.
older than me. Exactly. So we stayed, I was really young. He was a lot older. It didn't really quite click like what all I was marrying into.
Right.
I was rather immature about it. But towards the end stage of his life, I had to go to chemo, like,
Mm.
some of his chemo appointments and
Right.
stuff like that. And that's when it started for me. I was like, alternative medicine. I'm like, this chemo seems to be killing him. It's making him
Mhm.
worse. Is there
Mhm.
anything we can do to try to make his quality of life better? And
Exactly.
so, yeah, this was like the early 2000s. And so I literally had a doctor tell me at that time, oh, that stuff is like a waste of time. And I was like, but
Oh.
he's dying over here. I'm like, I'm watching him waste away. Like, I'm like, if
Mhm.
this is how it's going to be, I'd rather make him comfortable.
Right.
And it wasn't long after that that he actually transitioned. And
Mm.
from that point forward, like a month later, I ended up getting into massage therapy school. Um,
Wow.
excuse me. From that point forward, I knew I wanted nothing to do with the Western side of medicine because I watched
Mm.
how they treated him.
Mhm.
At one point, he had really good insurance, and then he ended up getting laid off from his position, and he was uninsurable because of the
Oh,
terminal cancer.
geez.
And so
Oh.
he had to declare indigent every time he went to get his chemo. And I'm
Wow.
thoroughly convinced that the quality of chemo of what he was getting when he had the insurance
Yeah.
compared to what he was getting
Different.
was different. It was totally
Mhm.
different because he was
Okay.
wasting away.
Mhm.
And I wanted nothing to do with Western medicine
Oh.
after that. And I got into massage therapy a month after he transitioned. And
Mhm.
that was kind of my thing to him. I was like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate my life to holistic studies, practices, and things
Mhm.
like that. And it just expanded my world because I was
Mhm.
grateful to go to a school where we talked about the mechanical side of massage therapy, as well as like energy healing,
Mhm.
aromatherapy, Reiki, different
Yes.
stuff like that. So,
Yes.
everything happens in divine order in the universe. But
Yes.
I think that's amazing to know that you're in this space doing
Yes.
that type of work. So, when I get super excited when I hear that there's doctors out there who treat the whole person,
Yes.
and I say that at the beginning of every one of my podcasts. I hope everybody's taking care of themselves, mind, body,
Mhm.
spirit, because it's all got to be integrated. So,
Yes.
put some respect on
Oh,
Dr. Ray.
thank you.
Like I had to say that at least once, but then when you shared everything and you laid it out so eloquently, it's an honor to be sitting here talking to you. And I know you're out there
Absolutely.
doing great things for your patients. Do you call them patients?
I do, just to help keep sometimes a boundary. Things can get quite blurred in what I do and how involved I become in people's lives. I really do become sometimes like the honorary family member and get really attached, and they get attached to me, which is a beautiful process. But then it did hit a point where I was getting burnt out and my boundaries were blurred.
Mm,
And I was starting to deplete my own self as not being able to sometimes draw the line of knowing, I'm not here to fully save the world, right? And not by
right,
myself, at least. I got to know I can do my part. People have to step up and do their part. And there does sometimes have to be some delineation because there were some lines that were crossed in some of those therapeutic relationships that were not always, that wasn't healthy for me, and
right.
ultimately that wasn't going to be safe for them either. So I do say patients, or clients if I'm working with them outside of the medical, but we're doing spiritual work, we're doing energetic healing. um, but ultimately everyone's my brother and sister,
That's right.
everybody's my fam here, we all came in here together. So as a collective, I still have that connection.
I love it. I love everything about that. So, So yeah, so you're definitely practicing. I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to seem like the questions are a little bit redundant because by you being raised that way, and
Mhm.
seem like very conscious to the natural world and the natural realm, that definitely would completely shift the way that you see the world compared to other people who don't have access to that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into metaphysics. I'm sure, like I said, it's all connected, but I want to hear it from
It it is in this weird interwoven way, and it's funny. We're finally I'm at a place where I could probably tell it to you a little bit more succinctly than I would have any other time in my tenure here as a human in this reincarnation. But
you. Hmm.
you know, ever since I was a child, I had the gift of sight. It runs in my family. So when we talk about the metaphysics, you know, I was seeing spirits as a child and interacting with spirits and didn't even know that was going on. My mother and
Hmm.
my bit mom were the ones who believed in me and helped to cultivate that spiritual warrior quality in me so
Yes.
I wouldn't have fear and I can be protected and reminding me you're a child of God, you're covered by the blood, rebuke anything that doesn't feel right, you know, so that counts. That's the
Yes,
metaphysical
it
enter.
does.
And then watching my mom, I remember waking up by spirit, just waking up at really early ages, like maybe 5, 6, 8, 9 years old. My mom had a morning practice where she would wake up before everybody else, that everything was still dark. And she would meditate, and she would be meditation in tongues by the time, praying in tongues by the time I would sometimes get to her. And I just knew at a young age, like not to interrupt her. I would just sit right next to her and sit the way she was sitting. And little did I know, like that was also, you know, an imprint that was happening
Yes.
of, you know, recognizing like we go to spirit, we go and retreat and be by ourselves. And we do this level of connection and self-reflection in order to find that empowerment, in order to get that strength that we need and that protection and favor and discernment. You know, so that was cultivated early. I was raised Southern Baptist. And although I don't necessarily subscribe to that anymore, it's still something I highly revere
Hmm.
because it plays into the ancestral work, which again plays into that metaphysics piece. Again, during these times, I'm not clocking this is the term that's being used. For
Right.
me, this is my normal, this is life, this is how we move. And now we can honestly say this is indigenous, this is
It
indigeneity
is.
and how we move in this community as Black people. You know, we're very spiritual, and we're very connected, you know,
Hmm.
so that was normal for me. There was no, you know, this is this and that is that. And then it wasn't until I really got, I would say about a few years ago, that's more when I was getting exposed, especially when I was in Portland, Oregon. That's when I was starting to hear the term metaphysical and energy work and noetic
Right.
sciences, you know, and really it's because of the demographic I was around. I'm around, you know, essentially, you know,
New
Europe,
age.
yeah, new age people, people from European descent, and this is
Right.
how they're using terminology
Yes.
to describe what's going on, you know, and I'm like, okay, you know, and for us at the end of the day, it's like really about there's something to this. Other people are experiencing it in different ways, but what cannot be seen with the naked eye or made sense by our five senses, it's what's beyond, you know, behind the realm. And for a long time, being in the sciences, being in medicine, I hid who I was. So
Hmm.
metaphysics did not come up during medical school, during college, or anything like that. In fact, you know, it was considered woo woo and taboo and crazy and non medical and non scientific. It took getting into my 30s and getting away from some of these structured systems, these rigid
Hmm.
systems, in which I was able to learn a little bit more and realize like, oh, my connection with spirit, how I see and experience energies, being an empath. How do you explain when we see certain things in medicine that they say, oh, it's spontaneous remission, or it's a miracle? We're like, is it? Like, no, I mean, I
That's
believe
a long word.
there's some powerful, you know, I agree. Like it is a miracle, but let's not sit here and just act like it just happened. There's nothing
Ta-da!
else going
Right. Like
on.
there's nothing to explain that, articulate that, I love that, and I love the fact that you were so rooted to spirit at such an early age. And our stories are so different and we end up like kind of reconnecting at the same time because I grew up in a really religious household and no, there was nobody to validate, hey, I'm talking to my ancestors and my spirit guides, so I
Yeah.
kept a lot internal. And I started out with the new age folks because I
Okay.
didn't have anybody. like it just wasn't anybody in my community that I knew that was doing that. So New Age is what started it for me. But I had these questions, and I would, always be a seeker, and they didn't know. Like they
Right.
didn't know how to explain it to me. And it wasn't until I hit my early 30s that I got connected to the traditional African side. And I was like, oh my God, like all this
Right.
stuff, like we were doing this already. I'm like, this is
Right.
our stuff. Like it's,
From the
you know,
jump.
from the jump. And I'm like, no wonder they couldn't tell me what was going on. I used to take it personal. I'm like, they didn't
Right.
know. Like they legit didn't know, or they come from a different pantheon. So like they can't give
Right.
you information about your lineage and where you come from. And so
So true.
but it was good. I'm grateful for that, because those foundational basics that can be used across any spirituality, I needed that. Yoga,
Right.
meditation. I needed to,
Yes, all
the plant
those.
based. I needed those basics. But
Yes.
um, the crazy thing
Absolutely.
about it is, once I tapped into New Age, I was already doing stuff like you said. I just couldn't articulate and express the
Right.
things.
That's
And
what
when,
it was, or this is a
yes,
identification of it.
right. And so I learned those terms first, and then I get connected to my African side. It was crazy. I remember when I was going on the journey, my spirit kept saying, "You need to get connection with your African roots," and I kept hearing
Right.
that, and I was like, "Wow, like I got to. How am I going to do this?" And crazy thing about it is, I was on Facebook, girl, Facebook, and I ended up coming across a Yoruba festival. Like that, to me, that's
Oh,
like no accident. And
mm.
I went. It was in
Yeah.
Gainesville. Like I traveled with my girls, and that like opened my mind tremendously on a whole nother level. And my journey took me other places, but I was like,
Yeah.
no accident that I saw this thing on
Not at
Facebook.
all. It was divine. It was
And I
necessary.
ended up going, and it was a legit, like, serious stuff going on there. And I learned a
Right.
lot. But it also brought everything back around full circle, and was like, you were doing this all along when you were talking to your
Right.
ancestors as a little
Hmm.
girl, those spirit guides and your spirit
Hmm.
team. And I started to learn a little bit more expression and how to articulate things. So
Hmm.
I think that's awesome. I think it's really interesting that both of us came back at like 30-ish. Like,
Yeah.
interesting. Maybe that's when we're mature enough to receive it or
I
something like
think
that.
so. I was about to ask you, like, were there's anything going on in your life that drew you further into how you found ATRs and the African-based practices? Meaning, I know for me, part of it was just feel like something was missing,
Yeah,
and that I needed, like, again, more of a
literally.
deeper explanation as to like how can I get in touch in this deeper side of myself that I feel like I'm still being colonized. I still feel like I'm not quite seeing beyond or feeling beyond what else is there. And for me, it was like I was just going through a really dark period. And when I found ATRs, it gave me some more enlightenment around
Hmm.
practices and supportive tools to get me through that stage. That I'm sorry, talk therapy was not working.
I'm
Doing
telling you.
exercise was not hitting the mark. Prayer was not even hitting the mark. I needed something else.
Yes.
So I'm just curious for you. What I know you had the festival. Was there anything else that was drawing you in at that time and attracted you to it?
That for me, it was just that inner calling. I had been hearing it for maybe like a year or two. And so
Mm,
like my husband transitioned and then I continued a little bit of the new age stuff. I got into tantra.
mm, cool.
Tantra was very helpful because it was a deeper, form of spirituality, and it was about raising the kundalini. And
Hmm.
so I actually got initiated in that. I went to Qigong. Qigong, also a different level of energy
It
work.
is. I love you.
and and then all of a sudden something was like you said, like I need to know more. I got to find out. And it was like I was kind of getting irritated with the places I was going because they weren't giving me what I needed, and it
Yes.
wasn't really their fault, and I just didn't know what to do. And I was just out there, and I'm hearing these spirit guys, these ancestors. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling
Right.
alone,
Right.
and I didn't know what I was looking for. I think it just kind
Hmm.
of presented itself, and then I was like, let me check this out,
Hmm.
and I ended up going. And like I said, I ended up going a different, um, on a lot of journey after that as well.
Hmm.
And then eventually landed into hoodoo, because I
Yes.
had more, yeah, I had more accessibility to that,
Right.
where I could work directly with my ancestors and
Right.
lineage, because I had a hard time finding teachers in the other. And plus, my
Right.
ancestors really wanted me to do this with them. They have always shunned against me really being with a group or being under
Yeah.
one person. They
Hmm.
always have
Mm.
attached to a community of any sort. That's just how it's always been with every community. And even the last reading I got by a Nephi priest
Mhm.
um, was, I think, in 22. The same thing was
Mhm.
said. Like he was like, he gave me a little bit of information and he was like, you have to do this on your own. And I just,
Mhm.
I was like, come
Mhm.
on, I'm trying to find a cheat code here, and
Right,
but it was
right.
like, no. And it makes sense today. Today
Yes.
I understand exactly what he meant and what they meant. I
Yeah.
had to come to this place that I am today
Yes.
um, on my own. And now it's expanding and I'm going on a different journey where I'm feeling
Right.
more called to quantum physics and a deeper understanding of the
Mhm.
different planets and the galaxies and the universe
Mhm.
and all that. So it's an amazing journey and experience. But I would ask you how you got started and got over there, but you you seem
Well,
like you were already there.
well, not quite, because I mean, hoodoo in my household would have probably made my mom and my bit mother clutch their pearls, and and my
Right.
mom at first she was quite she was a little unnerved. I would say maybe around 2020 was when I like late 2019 going into 2020. I think because I was trying to dive in deeper and finding other herbal healing modalities, and trying to also find something that can connect back into like my Appalachia roots, and as well as I did an African ancestry DNA test and identified I was TCAR. So I was like, okay, I want to kind of dive more into that. And I can't pinpoint the exact moment when I came about hoodoo. But I think it had to been around like when I was researching books and finding stuff around that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then
Hmm.
I started, same as you. It's been this thing of where even though I've been traveling alone in this reality with it, I'm not alone. I have guides, I have ancestors, and they really haven't been about go find a teacher, go find a mentor. It really goes back to talk to your guides, talk to your ancestors first and foremost. They are your godparents. They are, your initial Elay. And then from there, I had it. I think in 2021, there was an online virtual event with Yeye Louisa Tish and Chantrell Lewis, and I think they were doing like a workshop around Yeye's book Jambalaya, and that's what really tipped me off to ATRs and Lukumi. And I
Oh,
got
okay.
Yeye's book. And then I actually got a Dilagoon reading from her like the very following month. And she was like, oh, you're being called to initiate. Have
Hmm.
you already been doing this, and what's going on with that? And long story short, with all of that, I then spent the last few years trying to decide, like, am I like, who's my godparent and where am I supposed to go and what does that look like? And I remember Chantrell, I reached out to her because she has a ATR's group that she runs, but it's just more of a looser community of folks that are just trying to ask questions and learn more. It
Right.
isn't an actual like elay. And although I do think it's starting to become its own entity for sure. And I remember asking her, I was like, how do you know how to find the right godparent? Like, how do you know an Elay is right for you? Like, what did you do? And she just kept saying, ask your guides, go to your
Hmm.
ancestors, sit at your altar. They will tell you. And just
Yeah.
like you, mines would tell me, I was like, is this the right godparent? And they say, no. Like, I was like, really? They're like, no. Like, and I
Yeah.
said, what about this Elay? They're like, no, don't go there. Stay away.
Hmm.
And I'm glad, because then there was stuff that happened after the
Yep.
fact that I found out. I'm like, thank you, spirit. Thank you, ancestors. Thank you,
Yep.
guides, forever
Hmm.
protecting me. And now this journey has just been like, no, you got us. That's essentially what they say. Like, we here, talk to us, spend time with us. We got you. And I've actually
Yep.
been, they're right. I've learned so much just by tapping into that space. So you and I are aligned there, where it's
Yeah,
like
I
our
love that.
is
And
being
I'm glad to
equal.
know I'm not the only one too, because I
You're
was like, and,
not.
and
You're
like you
not.
said, I'm not alone, and I never have been alone on this planet. They've been there since a little girl through the dark times and through it all. And
Yes.
you're right. I learned the best that way, because sometimes I think that people can insert their humanness
Yes.
into, if they think that maybe you know more or you're
Mm-hmm.
more powerful or something, then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden these things like envy and jealousy get
Yes.
in, and the ancestors, they just want to guide you and they want to make sure you're protected at
Exactly.
all costs. And so, and it also strengthens that relationship. I shouldn't be
Exactly.
going too outside of myself and
Mm-hmm.
them for guidance. And so it was lesson learned, but I did a lot of that seeking and going, and I just finally came to the realization that it's like, okay, it looks like it's less like it's always been, and I'm all right. And I'm okay. And I know
Yeah.
when it's time to move to the next phase. I know when it's time
Yeah.
to do something different. I'm actually about to get a past life regression. Like I said, it's in alignment with where I'm going, because I want to know more about the soul experience
Mhm.
that I've been having. So, oh my gosh, I absolutely
Love it.
adore you. And I know that this is no accident, because everybody that I've had on this podcast as a guest, I'm like, Spirit did that. The ancestors did that. They told me to start this podcast in 22.
Mhm.
And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what the hell am I doing? And I did it because I do what they say within
Same
reason,
here. I just be
I was
obedient.
like, okay, like, so I started this podcast and I was talking myself, for a while. And then recently they were like, okay, now I want you to start gathering people and bringing them
Mhm.
on the podcast. And, you created this community that I always wanted, where we're all off on our own path. But
Yes.
it's great to come together with like mind conscious people and also
Yeah.
be able to share that with other people because of what's happening in the world and in the planet right now. Folks are waking
Absolutely.
up, and some of us were already awoke. So
Exactly.
it's time to get out there and start sharing them gifts. They finally told me that. So
Yes, you
definitely a
did.
lot of similarities there. And I want to talk about your medical tarot and
Yes.
mediumship. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah. I think I'm in a league of my own on that for now. So yes, the mediumship. So as you know, so it took me a while to realize that the experiences I had as a child, and also how they didn't just stop as a child. They were most powerful as a child because I was just a shiny new object. But as the world starts pouring its stuff onto you, right,
Mhm.
it sometimes condemn that and disconnect you from that. And so I've always been super intuitive. Anyone who's known me, I'm just like, you just be knowing. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. So that's a form of mediumship. And I would say that's
Mhm.
for a lot of folks. Like if you just know stuff and have intuition, that's mediumship. All of us are mediums. And it took me up until about 2 years ago to really acknowledge that, because I think there was a lot of rhetoric that was programmed into me from various systems and people, even people that are close to me, where, the idea of that wasn't really supported, like being a psychic medium, or using tarot cards or divination tools, especially if you're coming from pretty religious backgrounds that can sometimes be seen as satanic or the work of the devil,
Right.
which is kind of crazy because there's oracles and psychics and
Telling you.
necromancy and oblivion, man. It's like all this
And it's
stuff
like, do you
happening in
read
these
that Bible
texts.
actually?
Like I read,
Have you gotten that Old Testament?
oh, so it's kind of wild that I got shut down. But again, people get scared of what they do not understand.
That's right.
And so about 2 years ago, I finally gave myself that freedom up to, as I was again in the ATRs community and being around people who were more vocal about being mediums and doing prayer circles and misas, where we embrace that. And that's the first time I ever knew of any of that misas and the white table ceremonies and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Then I was given these tools because I think that was the biggest thing my mom kept saying. It's like, you don't want to open up the door and something comes attached to you. And we think about exorcisms and we think about all these horror movies, like
It's like, you
something
guys got to
gets you,
stop watching TV, like,
right?
get into the real realness, and you
It's
don't
like you
need no
about to have
TV.
something jump you, the boogie, the oogla booglas, the boogeymans, so that's part of that stuff too. And when I was in the ATRs and still am, that's part of what has helped me in that community of different mediums saying, this is the tools, these are the rituals, these are the prayers, these are the protections, this is how we make sure that essentially no oogla booglas or boogeymans be coming through, that we're only channeling the highest spirit. So I did need that training because that wasn't given to me. And also I was gaslit for so long when I had these different experiences or stuff was coming in, and that finally I had been validated. So once that piece happened and I was now feeling secure that ain't nothing gonna come and touch this. If they do,
Right.
they really barked up the wrong
They're
tree.
gonna wish they hadn't.
You're gonna wish you hadn't. This is not the one you want to touch, okay? And so once I knew and had that confidence, then funny enough, I started doing tarot when I was 14, 15, 16, stopped doing it because of then different loved ones and different ones shutting that down and just saying, you don't know what you're doing. That's kind of witchcraft. You go blah, 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 this and that. And so again, it squelched it. But I was naturally good at it back then. So it's funny how a lot of times when we were in childhood, our gifts are revealed. It's who's around us to cultivate them that determines how well they come through and become developed during this experience called life. And so I recircled back around and connecting with my inner child. And I remembered like, oh, I was naturally good at tarot. And so I got back into my old decks. And then I don't know, something just clicked as I was doing meditations and spending time. The answers just let me know that you're part of the reason why you're a good doctor is because you're a medium.
Yeah.
You just be knowing things. It's like,
You know stuff. And
that's
I
not
was
how
an
everybody
amazing massage
functions.
therapist because of that.
Yes. I didn't realize that. I was just thinking that's how everyone's brain was working. But no, they no, like the reason why you knew to test for this, or you knew to diagnose this, or you found the thing that someone else didn't, that's your mediumship. And it's like when people come and talk to you, you automatically know sometimes what's going on. I'm thinking, oh, it's because I'm book smart. I know this. And that's what like, okay, boo, like you are book smart, but you also are gifted, and this is a form of where this is where your gift is showing up, where you can actually sense and figure out what's going on with people, and it isn't just all rationale, it isn't just all ego, it isn't just all book smarts. And so from there I just started getting back into tarot, sitting at my altar, working that, starting with myself, starting with my loved ones. By this point my mom's feeling a lot more comfortable because she's just seeing like, okay, my kid's not getting possessed. She's actually getting smarter. She's actually saying a lot more wiser things. Like she's just realizing like, okay, I don't need to be scared for her. And I had to check her on that. I'm like, I don't need your fear. You're projecting. Let me be free, because this is the reason why our bloodline can't seem to break some of these cycles. Someone has to be able to jump out here and do it. So when she gave me that blessing to say, go for it. And she started letting me do readings with her, to do readings with different ones I know and love. And then they started saying, oh, wow, you were spot on. Thank you for telling me to go, talk to the doctor about this. And it wouldn't be because they were just telling me symptoms. It would literally be coming up in the cards and the readings and the visions I was getting. I'm like, is this going on? They're like, no. I'm like, go get this checked, or go check, or go look into this. And they would. And they're like, wow, you were spot on. So then that built my confidence. And next thing I know, someone's like, you need to be doing this with patients. You need to be doing this with clients. Yeah. So I started last year, actually.
I love it.
Meetings, and it's been going well ever since. And now with folks coming in that I've never met, I do the readings with them. I found a really awesome tarot card deck that I love. And I'm able to suss out things going on with their organ systems and the elements that are in their bodies: water, fire, earth, air. And then also it tells me about the different themes. It's that spiritual context, because disease starts in spirit.
Yes.
Manifest in the body and the material realm. And so it's giving me all these layers of information before there's even lab testing, before there's even an exam, before there's any, medical intake. I'm getting all these layers of information. So, it's still, I'm still learning and growing. I'm still a baby in it. I would not say that I've reached mastery level yet. I think I have a lot to still learn. But the fact that, I celebrate the fact that I'm at least aware, and I'm actually able to practice it.
I love that. I don't think I've ever heard of that. And I've been able to just know things about people health wise, but it never dawned on me, hey, maybe you should run the cards. I just know stuff, and I know, and I probably scare them. I'm like, you need to get this checked out, especially coming from me, because I'm not a doctor. I'm just an energy healer. So now all of a sudden, and I've had people that, they didn't take it seriously. And then sure enough, like a year or two later, they ended up having some surgery or some complications because of it. And that's how I figured it out. I was like, it's been a couple of people like that, but it never dawned on me, like, being a facilitator of healing, that maybe that would actually be helpful. But yeah, I've never heard of that. I think that's so creative that you use the tarot in that manner, and keep doing it. I think you're doing good things. Yeah, I mean, it's been an honor talking to you. We've been going, and I could go even longer with you, but I think we pretty much covered everything, because you are very well-rounded. You are definitely deserving of your title, and I appreciate you coming to spend your time and share your wisdom with the audience today. Please tell us how we can find you, as well as if you have any classes, any books, or anything coming out.
Yes. All the things. So my primary few ways you can find me. You can visit my website, which is, especially if you want more of the medical side, the Dr. Ray side of me, and the health support. It's drraynd.com. And then I'm sure you'll be able to share the
Yep.
links with them. And then you can also find me on socials with the handle at Dr. Ray ND. That's DRRAYND. I'm also on Substack. That's really where you'll catch me nowadays. I've been kind of abandoned all the other social platforms. So Substack is where I'm really tying the East and the West, the conventional and the metaphysical together. And you're getting this more comprehensive side of me where we're diving into the medical tarot, we're diving into the esoteric and the ATRs, and still adding the health and wellness to all of it. So at my Substack, it's Breaking Free for Healing Ascension with Revee Lucidian. That's truly my spirit name.
I love it. I love it. And a beautiful one too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to have all those links and information down in the description. And yeah, I mean, that's how I met her, guys. I met her on Substack. That's my little hideaway. I'm everywhere, I'm all out there. But Substack's my little hideaway, and I've been like spending time in other places lately. I just had a master class and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was just truly an honor to have you here, and I would love
Thank
to
you
have
so
you
much
back
for having
like
me. I would love to.
sometime. Yeah, like sometime next year. We'll be in touch because I know where you're at and how to find you.
Sounds good. And I do offer online classes,
Mm,
workshops, and there will be a hormone health cookbook that's coming out soon. So hopefully people stay tuned for that.
heck yeah. I mean, that's definitely helpful. But all right. So yes, thank you so much once again, and I will see you
G.
around. All right, bye.
Bye for now.